This episode's guest is Derek Lee, who's playing drums on the intro song, Coming Home by the Drummer Kings. Derek is the creator of Drum Notation by Beatnote and the developer behind the amazing Benny Greb Gap Click app. At the core of our chat is the intersection of technology and drumming, and how technology has not only positively impacted performances, but also education. Derek has an inspiring story with some impressive achievements and ballsy career moves along the way, which I think a lot of people could benefit from hearing about. I'm super fortunate to have made an absolute legend of a friend across the pond, who I'm also in the process of collaborating with on some online drum course content that I've been working on. Thank you, Derek, and thank you everyone for tuning in. I hope you enjoy. Alright, so welcome, Derek.
Thank you.
Great to chat with you again, but now this is the real deal. I'm getting that red light fever.
Me too, I think.
Okay, so how about we start? Do you want to just tell us generally about yourself?
Sure. My name is Derek, and I have been drumming since I was a kid. I started drumming at 11 years old, and I ended up pursuing a career in software engineering. So I've been pursuing that for about 25 years now. And my goal has been to find a way to combine my passions, and I've been working to do that, for the last 10 or 15 or so years.
Can you tell us a bit about where you started drumming? We previously spoke, you said around the age of 11, but what got you there in the first place?
Yeah, I think when I go back and consider that period, it was a long time ago. I don't have very detailed memories of it. However, I do remember my parents listening to a lot of music in the car and also bringing me to my first concert. So my first concert was Heart. That's Ann and Nancy Wilson, Barracuda. Is one of their famous, well-known songs. So that was my first live concert, and I believe that was really the inspiration behind me wanting to play the drums, because my birthday that year is when I asked for drum lessons from my parents, and they drove me 20 minutes to the closest local mom and pop music store in central Massachusetts, where I grew up in the United States. And I started taking lessons, just very simple lessons on snare drum and drum kit.
And do you remember how it felt to be playing that dream instrument? Did you know then? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, it was just interesting because I didn't really grow up around instruments. We didn't have much musical talent in the family. Or kind of just even around me. And even the elementary and middle school that I went to didn't have a music program. They didn't have a band. So even when I got into high school, I was a little surprised about marching band and concert band and things like that. I joined the jazz band in high school because I was already playing drum set. And so that was something I was interested in, but I didn't know about the marching band and the concert band. I didn't actually end up joining those until my sophomore year of high school. So, I'm not really sure exactly where my, interest in drumming came from, besides being exposed to music and hearing the drums and going to, see Heart perform live. It was just interesting because there really wasn't much influence, in my immediate surroundings.
Mm. And then from high school, that high school era to beyond, what was your drumming journey like?
Yeah, so I loved rock. I was growing up with rock music, hard rock, heavy metal. In high school, I was, it was the early mid-90s. So I'm playing Tool, I'm playing Metallica, I'm playing Megadeth, I'm playing Rage, I'm playing Primus, Alice in Chains, Candlebox, Pearl Jam. All of these bands were heavily influential during that time. And then I was also playing in the jazz band and also getting some experience with marching percussion and concert percussion and things like that. I auditioned for the All-State, played in the All-State concert band when I was in high school my senior year. And my band director, Paul Pitts, also, he had worked with the Boston Crusaders Drum and Bugle Corps, and he recommended that I go out there and check them out. And so I started to get interested in Drum and Bugle Corps. I ended up marching 2 summers of drum corps, which was just an amazing experience from growing my musical skills and developing my hands and rudimental drumming and marching, the competitive nature of that. And what it did for me musically was, exactly what I was hoping. I just really wanted to grow as a drummer, and build up that part of my skill set. So I did that, and then I did the jazz band in high school. We did the jazz band competitions, actually, at the Berklee College of Music and the surrounding area in New England and things like that. And as a part of that, myself and our alto sax player in the high school jazz band were given kind of an award at this jazz competition, outstanding member or something along that line. And they gave us a tour of Berklee. I applied, and I did get accepted to the Berklee College of Music. And my parents, were always very, very supportive of my drumming, allowing me to play my drums in the house, band practices at home, all of this stuff. But when it came time, right, to pursue a career, understandably so, there was some hesitancy when it came to studying music, full time. So Berklee wasn't in the cards for me. I ended up studying computer science at Purdue University, a great place to study. They had the first computer science program in the country back in the day, and so I got a really great education there. And it ended up being a fortunate opportunity for me because Purdue didn't have a school of music. And I might have thought that was a negative thing, but it was actually a positive because it wasn't as competitive. If I had been at a school of music, I probably wouldn't have been able to participate in the band department there. I probably wouldn't have been good enough to get in. And in fact, my freshman year, I went from being, in the high school jazz band and being awarded for my jazz playing to not even getting in the Purdue jazz band. And they had 4 jazz bands, and I wasn't good enough to get into it. So it was a really great wake-up call for how to further develop my skills. Even in the marching band, when I joined the marching band, I didn't play traditional grip, so they didn't put me on the snare line, and I played.
Oh damn!
So they put me on the toms, so I ended up playing quads, quints, and just making that my instrument because matched grip was what I was more comfortable with than traditional grip. So.
Just curious, with the traditional versus match grip, was that literally only the reason that did they say you play match grip so you're not fit for snare line?
Well, it depended on probably on the organization, but the majority of the drum and bugle corps and the majority of the professional level marching scene is all marching traditional when it comes to snare drum, and so I could have taken the time probably to invest into building up my traditional chops, but it just wasn't something that I really was passionate about, especially playing drum kit and being more comfortable with matched. So I just went all in on playing quads and did that through Purdue University, 3 years at Purdue. I ended up being the section leader of the drum line my junior year. I marched in Boston Crusaders, and I also marched in the Blue Stars, and just had such a great experience developing that side of my music capability.
Yeah, and you mentioned like a bit of a career change. Could we go into where that passion was when you were younger as well?
Yeah, so for computers, my father ran his own business when he was, when I was young, And he was very interested in computers at the time, and so I was very fortunate just to have a computer at the house. And as a young middle school kid, I think I was maybe 11 or 12 years old, I started tinkering with my dad's Apple II Plus computer, and an interest in programming. I just started to kind of play around with it and see what I could do. It was basic programming, literally the language is called BASIC, and just whatever I could do to kind of tinker. There were some books that my dad had probably received when he purchased the computer, and so that tinkering turned into running a bulletin board system. Maybe you don't know what a bulletin board system is.
I was about to ask what, if you could elaborate on that.
So before the internet, we used to have modems, and they made these really screechy noises when connecting to like websites and things like that. AOL. Well,
I remember the modems.
You remember the modems?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
So before AOL, we had things called bulletin boards, and people would set up a bulletin board system on their computer, which gave any caller the ability to send emails and participate on forums and upload and download files and basic actions like this. But you're using the telephone line, so only one person can connect to one bulletin board at a time. And then whenever someone's not connected to a bulletin board, that bulletin board system is usually dialing out to other bulletin boards in the network to get emails sent. So today we can send an email and it just goes pretty much instantaneously over to whoever the recipient is. But back in the day, we had to wait until computers actually used dial-up to talk to each other to send these messages over the wire.
Wow.
And so here I am in high school taking like evening programming classes at the local college because my high school didn't offer it. And my parents also very generously allowed me to run a bulletin board out of my bedroom, which now that I think about it, I wonder if that was really such a good idea or not. But I got a lot of great experience just tinkering with computers and programming as a result of that.
And at this stage, you were studying with adults while you were 11 or?
I was in high school at that point, so, probably 14, 15, 16 time frame. Yeah, I was taking some university courses in the evening to learn more about programming, and I was able to actually get credits for those when I went to Purdue, which was a great benefit.
Nice. Very good. So around this time, you were still playing in bands and doing recording and touring as well?
Yeah, that happened once I got out of college. Once I graduated from Purdue, I moved over to the Washington, D.C. area, Northern Virginia. I started playing in original rock bands and, a lot of weekend warrior stuff, but we were very serious. The bands I was playing in, we were practicing 2-3 times a week and gigging usually once a week. And that wasn't just limited to the D.C. area. We would drive up to Baltimore, we would drive up to Philly, we would drive up to New York City. Sometimes, on a Tuesday or a Wednesday night, and then drive back. We're all full-time, working a full-time job and then doing this just kind of on our own time.
How did you manage, I guess mentally more than anything, juggling like a career in computer science and music? Were you favoring one or the other at the time, or what was happening?
When I first started my first job out of college, it was a slower time for me musically. I was working for a consulting company, and they had me traveling Monday through Friday to the customer sites in order to actually work with the customers directly, building software for them. And so I actually spent 9 months traveling to Atlanta, Georgia, and then about 15 months traveling to Madison, Wisconsin. And that's Monday morning, getting on an airplane, flying to the client's office, working there all week, and Friday flying back.
Wow.
So it was really difficult. I effectively couldn't play music much during that time. I had my drums set up in a friend's basement, so I was able to do a little bit of playing on the weekends, just practicing, but it just wasn't conducive to playing in a band. And once I kind of finished that tenure of, the first several years at that job, I was able to request a local project and get some time, locally, and that enabled me to then go search and find out some bands. And I joined a band called Down to This in 2003, Shout out to Guillaume, Timo, and Jason. Like, we're still brothers even today. And it was a really great experience. So I was able to kind of put my software development career on like a 9 to 5-ish. And I had a flexible schedule. So if I had to leave at 3 to drive up to New York for a gig and then get in late the next morning, and they were flexible with that as long as I didn't have any commitments. So
it sounds like a good balance. Were you happy with that balance at the time as well, or were you wanting more music, or vice versa?
I always wanted to make music my career, so that was a strong, there was a strong, intense feeling of that in me for sure. And Down to This got signed to a record label at one point, and the record label arranged for us to go into the studio to record a full-length album. And I was able to, take vacation from work, a couple weeks off, and just go into the studio. And so I was really fortunate to have both the ability to have a flexible job, a full-time software gig, and then also be able to use my time off to pursue things in music.
Nice. And so at this point, you're juggling both careers. What was the next sort of step in life for you?
Yeah, I visited Japan in 2003, and I'm not sure how much we want to get into that, but effectively I live in Japan now, and I've lived here for 15 years. So after I visited Japan in 2005, I really just fell in love with it, and I wanted to move here. However, the band Down to This, we ended up having to split up, and I ended up having an opportunity to join another band called The Speaks, and so I joined them. I decided to join them because music was still a really big thing for me, and I didn't want to move to Japan not having at least explored the opportunity with them. The Speaks had a really great following. They had some presence in the Philippines as well. They were mostly Phil-Am band in the DC area, and I really wanted to explore performing and what potential music opportunities could be had with them. So I did that for a couple of years, and then I ended up relocating to Japan in 2009, and so I've been here in Japan for about 15 years now.
What attracted you to Japan of all places in the world?
Yeah, I felt a little uncultured moving to Washington, D.C. after university, to be honest. Growing up in small town Massachusetts, and then going to school in the middle of cornfields, Indiana, I ended up in DC, and I met so many people just from all over the world, and many people who spoke more languages than just English, and I felt just a little bit uncultured. And since I was a kid, I kind of had an interest in Japanese culture and just the things I had been exposed to. And there's a bit of a masochistic side of me as well, so I thought, hey, I'll study some Japanese, I studied some French in high school because we only had French, Latin, Spanish, or German options, but it never really grabbed me. The culture, the language never really grabbed me. So I started to study some Japanese, and I took a vacation in my late 20s, kind of finding myself, type of opportunity. I came over here by myself and just went up and down the country, getting lost and meeting people, and I really loved the feeling here, the vibe here, the lifestyle here, and now that I pulled the trigger and kind of came out and made that move, and it's been 15 years, Japan kind of feels like home now.
That's awesome. Did you do any drumming related activities in Japan?
It was really difficult for me to actually get into the music scene here because of just the differences in how it operates. And so I've made a few attempts, and I did do a few gigs, like sitting in with some friends that play in a J-pop band. A buddy of mine asked me to play a jazz gig with him. Another buddy asked me to play a Latin gig with him. And, so I've had some opportunities to play, but it's just been, a lot more difficult for me to kind of break into, the different parts of the music scene because of the difficulty of just meeting people and connecting with people. And then, kind of life changes in 2020. Something happened. I can't quite remember exactly the details of what it was, But some big thing happened in 2020 that kind of threw everything out of whack, and then my daughter was born, and so the last 5 years or so have been a little bit more focused on family than it has been on music. But I think that's a natural part of just the ebb and flow of life and how things tend to go.
For sure. So it seems like in terms of the order of things from when you started drumming at the age of 11, we're now looking at basically what you're working on currently. So do you want to, I guess, where would you like to start?
So right now I'm working on an app called Drum Notation by BeatNote, and I think to do it justice, I just need to take a slight step back towards where things started. And when I was in high school, applying to colleges, getting accepted to Berkeley, and considering studying computer science, I actually was writing. I was going through shoeboxes of just memorabilia that a friend of mine very kindly stored in his house for the past 15 years for me. And I found one of my application letters for college, and I had actually written in there that my dream and my passion was to figure out how I can combine my passions for music and drumming with my interest in computer science and software engineering. And so it's really been in my mind, in my heart, since I was a kid, to try and find a way to merge these passions. And it took a long time before I started to see glimpses of how that would be possible. And that really turned for me around 2011, 2012 timeframe when Apple released the iPad. I got my first iPad and I got super excited about it, as I think, this is a tool that I can use to create something with for drumming, for education. And so I ended up switching from Windows to buying my first Mac computer, because you can't build iOS apps on Windows, or at least you couldn't at the time. Things have changed a little bit now, but at the time the only way to do that was to buy a Mac. And so I bought a Mac, I bought an iPad, and I started to teach myself how to program for that platform specifically. And it took me about 3 years before I was able to switch from a Windows application engineer over to an iOS, consumer-facing iPhone, iPad, mobile application engineer. And I started looking at opportunities to exercise, those skills. And I built my first app with a friend here in Tokyo. It was a yoga app for practicing like yoga poses and yoga flows and things of that nature. And then I started to think about how to build drumming educational apps and connecting with other educators. I built an app for Mike Johnston called Groove Freedom. I ended up getting the opportunity to build Benny Greb's metronome, the gap click, and now I'm pursuing building Drum Notation by BeatNote, which is my own kind of creation that I'm putting out into the world. So, the last 12 years or so, I've finally been able to start to combine these passions into something that is tangible, to share with the world.
Well, like being able to work with those two big names is a huge deal. Are we able to dig into that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. Where would you like to start?
Gap Click was the most recent thing, right?
Yep.
So let's start earlier. We'll kick off with the Mike Johnston.
Yeah. So really funny. One of my drumming buddies in DC, who I used to gig with, he turned me on to Mike Johnston back in maybe like 2009-ish time frame. So I started following Mike and his videos and his lessons, and then I ended up attending one of his camps in 2012 so that I could do some studying with him and connect with some other fellows. And I did that 2012, 13, and 14 studying with Mike and kind of establishing a relationship and a rapport with him. And I don't know how Mike took it at the time. Here's this kind of kid who's wants to build an app, and I was probably like harassing him a bit at the time, like, hey, I've got these great ideas for an app and whatever. Eventually, we ended up having a talk about the possibility of doing an app together, and I had so many ideas that they really needed to be corralled. And Mike said, Derek, I just finished writing this book called Grew Freedom. I haven't released it yet. Let's just focus on this one piece of content and make an app and build an app around this. So it was a really great opportunity, and I've got so much gratitude and appreciation, for the opportunity to work with Mike. I have so much respect for him as a teacher, as an educator, as an entrepreneur, and even kind of seeing where he is today and how he's grown his business is really inspiring. So I'm grateful to have had the opportunity to build that app, for him.
Amazing. What an experience to be able to work like side by side with someone of that caliber.
Yeah, it's really, really fortunate for me to have had that opportunity, for sure.
And then that brings us to Benny Greb. First of all, before we go into what it was like, how did you get that opportunity?
Yeah, so Benny, I got a chance to meet Benny, I think it was 2016, and one of my friends, Joe, shout out to Joe, Joe was in Chicago, based in Chicago, and Joe and I had met at one of Mike Johnston's camps, and Joe and I were talking about going to the Drum Fantasy Camp because it was in Chicago that year. And when I saw the lineup, I was like, I have to find a way to make this happen. It was Dave Weckl, Jojo Mayer, Benny Greb, Mike Mangini, and Steve Smith. And I was just like, how can I not I have to find some way to make this happen. And so I had the opportunity to go there. I think I did a half a day with Dave, a half a day with Benny, a half a day with JoJo, and then a couple shorter sessions with Mike Mangini and Steve Smith. And Benny's session was great. If you have had the opportunity, if you haven't had the opportunity, Benny tends to do a lot of interactive sessions, very, very, very interactive, workshop style. And I love it because you're not there just being taught, but you're actually getting to interact together and do things together. And it's very thoughtful how Benny approaches this. And of course, at the time, I'm forgetting exactly the timing. I don't think his Art and Science of Groove DVD was out yet. I don't remember the exact date of the release for that, but for some reason I think it might not have been out yet. And Benny's teaching us in this session about how to practice to a gap click, and saying this is how you can build your internal sense of time. You've got a metronome, and it goes on for some period of time, and then it goes off for some period of time. And he goes through the whole spiel of explaining it. And a student in the class raises their hand, and they said, well, this is all really great, Benny, but how do we practice this way? Is there any tool? Is there anything that we can do to actually practice this? And Benny said, well, are there any software developers in the room? And I just raised my hands, and he was like, okay, maybe we can talk afterwards, And so I had the opportunity to talk to Benny, and we exchanged contact info. He came to Tokyo, I think a year or so later, to do a clinic here, and I still hadn't heard from him, and I'm waiting in line to meet him after his clinic. And he sees me and big smile and shakes my hand. He's like, hey, Derek, I haven't forgotten about you. We're going to do the Gap Click project. I'm really busy. And sure enough, Benny reached out to me and we connected. And I ended up building the iOS app for the Gap Click. And then I built the Android app for the Gap Click. And it's been really another great opportunity working with Benny Greb. And so grateful for that chance to work with him. And actually, just at the Europe Drum Show, we had a chance to do a session together there as well. 2 weekends ago, Benny did a little Gap Click workshop at the booth that I had at the Europe Drum Show. it's just really great again to be able to participate in one of his interactive workshops and hear him talk about the gap click.
That's incredible, and I can't even imagine that feeling that you would have had when he finally reached out to basically start the working together.
Yeah, it's I don't even know how to express it, because like I consumed the language of drumming. I had followed him for a long time. He was a huge inspiration. He still is a huge inspiration. So to have the opportunity to get to work with him is just really something truly special.
Because basically the catalyst for this was the big clinic with Dave Weckl, Steve Smith. I guess if you hadn't gone to that, who knows where you would have ended up, right?
I would not have had the opportunity had I not gone to that, I don't think.
But back then, I know you said you had written out some things that you wanted to, like your dreams, basically, what you wanted to achieve. Did you ever have in your mind to work one-on-one with a big name drummer?
I didn't. I didn't at all. I didn't know how to go about pursuing this dream of mine. I had, I've got the drumming experience, I've got the software experience, I have all of these ideas of things that I want to build, and the one thing that I was really missing was the confidence in my ability to put something out in the world and get people to acknowledge it. Because at the time, and even now, nobody knows who Derek Lee is, and no one really cares who Derek Lee is, and I'm okay with that, but I also know that if I want to get a product out into the world, it really helps to have a way to market it and an audience to market it to. And so that's why I thought if I can partner with educators who have an audience, then I can help bring their vision to life and make something happen there. And once I had a couple apps under my belt, that gave me the confidence of, I do have the skills to do this. I do have the product knowledge to do this. I do have the experience in programming and design in product to be able to put something out in the world. And if I make a great product, I believe that people will acknowledge it. And if I make it great enough, then people will help me spread the word. People will tell them. If I give them a good enough reason to share it with other people, and if it's not good enough to do that, then I just have to continue to work at making it better and better and better and better. And based on the drumming experience that I have and the software experience I have, to me, the intersection of software, education, technology, drumming is where I can provide the most value.
Perfect. So two things. First thing, do you have any advice for people who are like how you were in the beginning, where you were you had all these ideas, but you were unsure how to action them?
That's a great question. I've had a couple people ask me, oh, I saw you built this app, can you tell me how you built that? What course do I need to take to learn how to build that app? And unfortunately, it's not something as simple as just, you just take this course, or you just, do this one thing, and then you have the ability to do this. It's literally been the culmination of all of my drumming experience and all of my education and all of my professional experience and things of that nature. To echo a bit of what you were saying earlier, had I not gone to the Fantasy Drum Camp, I wouldn't have had the opportunity to talk to Benny. And actually, that Fantasy Drum Camp also led me to a couple of other people connecting with Dave Weckl as well. And so had I not gone to that event, none of that would have been possible. And so I tend to be a little bit more, I'm like borderline introvert, extrovert. I enjoy connecting with people a lot, yet I really have a hard time putting myself out there and introducing myself in new situations and things of that nature. And so I think it's really important to put yourself out there and to build the muscle of feeling uncomfortable and getting comfortable with feeling uncomfortable and practicing that. And I find I'm putting myself in more environments and more situations to force me to become more comfortable in uncomfortable situations, so that I can get better at it. And the analogy I like to use is it's kind of like going to the gym. And the thing about going to the gym for me is I really like going to the gym. So it's not hard for me to go to the gym. It's not hard for me to motivate to go to the gym, but getting reps at the gym is what helps to build muscle. And you break down the muscle and you build up the muscle. And if you don't do the reps, you're just not going to be able to get there. And I view this as reps. My software programming, each line of code that I write is a rep. Each design that I tweak is a rep. Each time I introduce myself and I walk into a room and I put on a smile and I reach out my hand to shake someone's hand and introduce myself and say my name and I speak confidently, that's a rep. And I think identifying what environments either you are comfortable or not comfortable in, and finding a way to find the comfort in discomfort in those situations is a really important skill to become aware of, conscious of, and to put yourself in those environments.
Agreed. That's I'm very similar to you in that, borderline introvert, extrovert. I enjoy connecting with like genuine people such as yourself, but I typically prefer to keep to myself. So I completely relate. Just going back without going down a whole rabbit hole, writing out your dreams and what you wanted to achieve, what's the importance of that for you?
I think the importance of that for me is making it a bit more tangible. I went through a phase in my life where I wrote a handwritten journal for about 12 years.
Wow.
And I have all these books like in a box.
That's incredible.
And I think there's just something to be said about getting your thoughts out. There's something to be said for pen on paper as opposed to, I have a lot of comfort with my fingers on a keyboard, but there's just something about putting pen to paper, and I'm sure there's probably some scientific research out there that I'm just not aware of, but that has been very impactful for me, whether it be setting goals or just trying to sort through thoughts, decisions, emotions, benefits, drawbacks, situations, relationships, things of that nature. I find it very, maybe I could say therapeutic in a way, to do that, to write out things. Get some perspective too. It gives it allows you to put some distance, I think, between what you're thinking and then how you actually see that, right? It puts a little bit of distance between them.
Yeah, it's it'd be an amazing thing to go back and reflect through those journals and just see what, like, if anything lines up with your current day self. Yeah,
that would be an interesting exercise for me to go through.
Could we briefly talk about, because we spoke yesterday about a one-on-one lesson with Dave Weckl. Could we touch on that at all?
Yeah. So I, again, very fortunate, very grateful to have had an opportunity to connect with Dave Weckl. Ever since I started drumming, Dave was like probably one of my main influences. Master Plan, I had his, they were probably VHS tapes at the time, maybe DVDs later, but I'm pretty sure I had some like old school Dave Weckl stuff, Back to Basics, and saw him play at the Blues Alley in Washington, D.C. I go way back to being a Dave Weckl fan. And when I flew out to Chicago for that fantasy drum camp, Dave was one of the reasons why I wanted to go out there, to be able to take a lesson with him. And it's a group lesson, right? Like you've got, I forget, probably 15, 20 people, in a room doing like a master class style thing. The interesting thing about that year was a friend of mine here in Japan had asked me if I would do a Latin gig with him for his wedding. I'm probably going to mispronounce his name, Michel Camilo. He's a Latin jazz pianist, and he had a song called On Fire that my friend Nobu, shout out to Nobu, wanted me to perform with him at his wedding.
Mm-hmm.
And not just the recorded version of this song, but the YouTube live version of this song that Cliff Allman plays drums on. And I think Dave Weckl played on the studio recording of it. And I listened to this tune, and it's at, 500 BPM, and usually I'm pretty confident, like, if I have a song and I have like 4 to 5 months to prepare for it, like, I should be able to learn one song in 4 to 5 months. But this 12-minute powerhouse Latin tune was just way out of my league. And I was really struggling figuring out how to just go about doing it. Nobu had someone transcribe the YouTube piano part for him. He literally had someone transcribe the entire YouTube live version exactly as it was, and he learned it note for note and just totally ripped it. So when I had that opportunity to do the masterclass with Dave, I went up to him at one point. I was just like, hey, I think we had met once or twice before. I'd met him a couple times at NAMM and things like that. And I said, hey, Dave, like, I know you're coming to Tokyo, and whenever it was, August or September or something like that. And I don't know if you'd have time for a one-on-one lesson, but I've got this really challenging gig, and I could really use some pointers from you on this, because I know this is like your thing. And he was like, I don't know how my schedule's going to be yet, but here's my email address, and shoot me an email a week before, and we'll see what we can do. And sure enough, he agreed to do a lesson. I took a taxi over to his hotel. We taxied over to the studio I made a reservation at. I got a 2-hour lesson with Dave. He watched some of the YouTube video with me. And even he was like, wow, like, Cliff Allman's just like, totally killing this song. And he broke it down for me. He was like, okay, here's how we can kind of like break down this Latin groove into something that's a little bit more simplified. And I was so hesitant, and Dave was like, no, pull out your phone, take a video of this. Like, if you don't record it, like, you're probably going to forget it. So go ahead, take a video so you have this for later. He was just super nice, super kind, super generous, and just really awesome to have that opportunity with him. I'm not the caliber of drummer that should be taking a lesson with Dave Weckl, so I really appreciate his kindness to allow me that opportunity.
It's like amazing that you've had such close interactions with like Mike Johnston, Dave Weckl, Benny Greb, and then I'm assuming it wasn't one-on-one with Steve Smith, but like to be around these people would be pretty amazing for a drummer.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, it costs money, right, to travel to these locations. It costs money to participate in these events, and I was able to set money aside to be able to pursue this as a part of my drumming education. And, so much inspiration and motivation. There's, of course, the educational component. But for me, like, Jojo Mayer's session was inspirational more so just from, like, motivation. He talked about plateauing and how to get over plateaus. And he broke down some super simple concepts. And he played an entire solo with 3 notes and just changing the dynamics and the articulations and the voicing of it. And he never, and the subdivisions, but it was the same 3 notes just repeated over and over and over again. And just to see those kinds of examples and to have that kind of inspiration, the motivation from those kinds of events is really priceless. And so if anybody can, just find something, even if it's just a local event. A lot of your local educators are putting on events in your area, or within 30 minutes or an hour or whatever it is, do it to connect with these educators and connect with other, attendees. I made so many great friends from these events as well.
That's I think through our chats both today and in previous talks, I don't want to use networking, but let's use connecting. Connecting with others just seems super important, especially today.
I think it's really, really important. I think, especially today, the human element as we move into, more of a remote world. And while there are some aspects of the remote element that I don't like, I also am very, I can also acknowledge that this opportunity with you is made possible through the amazing technology that we have available to us. That said, if I could sit down in the same room with you and do this together, I would absolutely prefer that over this. But, we do what we can. And the more we can do things in person, the better. My first drum clinic was Liberty DeVito, and it wasn't on a TV screen. It was me going to an auditorium with my dad to watch Liberty DeVito do a clinic in person. And those kinds of events are just great. Yeah, connect with other drummers, connect with other educators, connect with your heroes. It's a really great opportunity.
Yeah. So, was there anything else you wanted to talk about working with Benny Greb and the Gap? I always get tongue-tied. Gap Click app.
Yeah, I don't know if there's anything else to really hit upon. Benny has a couple videos on YouTube and Instagram that talks about how to use it. He's the best person to give that spiel. I'm capable of talking about how it can build your internal clock and the different ways you can practice with a gap and a moving click. And I can vouch for the challenges and the difficulty that can bring to one's practice sessions. And I believe it's a great way, as Benny teaches it, to develop our internal sense of time and the importance of not just playing with that downbeat click and getting comfortable with that downbeat click to the point to where you kind of rely on it, then, to move to an offbeat click, to move to a gap click and really solidify your sense of time. And this is coming from someone who I used to I do all my gigs to playing to a click, and to ensure, and I always had that quarter note pulse going in there. I probably wouldn't want to do a gap on a live performance, but I do think
a great idea.
It would be good. I do agree with Benny. I think it's a great way, and I also use it to develop my internal sense of time.
I just want to add, it's freaky once everything fell into place for me when it comes to our chat, because I was using Benny Greb's Gap Click basically ever since it got released on Android. And pretty much every student that I teach, that's the app that I recommend them. But then to somehow time and place type thing, right? So I explained to you how I wanted to do my online course, and I was struggling with finding animated notation. And then when I saw your beat note scrolling app on someone else's video, then I'm like, oh my God, that's what I need and that's when did you reach out to me or did I reach out to you asking if there was, I think I reached out to you asking about Android support.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah. And then, here we are.
Here we are, yeah. The Android version of BeatNote is coming. I don't know when that's going to be coming because building for each of the platforms has its own set of challenges. But I did start building BeatNote from the beginning with some technology that allows me to share some of the code between iOS and Android. So I have from the very beginning the intention of doing it for Android as well. It's just right now as a mostly one person operation, it's going to take me some time to get there.
So this is probably going to be the biggest element of our chat, the BeatNote app. Can we start with the vision? What was it that inspired this journey?
I appreciate you asking about that. Yeah, the vision, it's interesting because It's almost been 3 years since BeatNote was released to the App Store. It'll be 3 years in June. And I spent a little bit over a year, developing it before I released that initial version. So we're about, 4 years into the development of the app. And it's really interesting because we are just at the tip of the iceberg for the vision that I have for this. So effectively, what happened with Mike Johnston's Groove Freedom app, it was a digitization of his book to practice independence exercises the way that I always wanted to practice independence exercises. And this is, I grew up playing on a new breed and, doing all these different types of things. And syncopation, like one of my teachers in university, he, taught me how to read syncopation to actually practice it around ostinatos and things like that. So I was, trying to figure out how do I practice things with independence. And I built all of those tools into Mike Johnston's Groove Freedom because the whole core of that concept was to build your independence on the drums. In the context, Mike Johnston's was in the context of a groove. So the feedback that I got from users of Mike Johnston's app, there were two things that were really surprising to me that I didn't expect when I originally built it. The first one was people were telling me, Derek, I didn't know how to read drum notation before, and now just through using this app, I'm learning how to read drum notation.
Wow. Huge.
And that wasn't my intention. My intention was I want to be able to practice the independence of this exercise. So what I did is I took the full groove, and even if you just think of, eighth notes on the hi-hat and then snare on 2 and 4, you're going to do bass drum permutations like a grid, right? And so what I did on the iPad was I separated out each limb, not just the audio, but the music notation. Okay? I don't know if we can show a picture of this at some point, but effectively we had the music at the top, and then I broke out, here's the right hand on the hi-hat, and it's just the 8 eighth notes. Here's the left hand on the snare drum, it's just 2 and 4, and then here's the kick drum, and here's the left foot on the stepped hi-hat. And so you could mix the audio, mute and solo, or adjust the audio of every limb independently and see the music notation for each limb independently. And so people are telling me, Derek, I'm learning how to read music notation as a result of using your app. And I was like, whoa, that wasn't my intention originally. The second thing people told me was, I really wish I had this for all of my drum books.
Amazing. That's powerful.
And it wasn't just, one person that said this. Many people were saying this. And so at that point I started thinking like, okay, what's a digital reading experience? Amazon Kindle. Okay, how can I take the concept of practicing drumming concepts, right? I already dialed in independence for practicing independence and building, multiple limb combinations. So what other elements of drumming can I build an interactive experience for and digitize this content for people? And initially I'm thinking Amazon Kindle for drumming, but how am I supposed to, with no funding and working a full-time job, build an app that's, of that scale and scope? And I just felt really overwhelmed, actually. I didn't know what to do. And I even had a couple opportunities where people said, hey, if you want to digitize this book, you can digitize this book too. And I just couldn't make the time. I couldn't figure out how am I supposed to carve out the time to do this. Groove Freedom had already taken so much time, to build. So when I was thinking about, okay, well, if I need content, then I guess I need to start with a way to build the content. So the core idea for BeatNote was, let me get a quick and easy way. What is the quickest and fastest and easiest way that I can get music notation and create content so that people can utilize that potentially for an interactive experience? And that was effectively the birth of the BeatNote idea. And after I released an MVP, a minimum viable product, which kind of just had the basics of composition and playback. The first version of BeatNote only had kick, snare, and hi-hat. It only had unaccented notes and accented notes. It was like super bare bones. Eighth note triplets, and 16th notes were the only subdivisions that it supported, and even when you played the music, there was no visual indicator of where the music was actually being played. It played the audio, and you could see the music, but you didn't know like where it was in the music. And you can go back and read the first review that I got, and someone was like, this is a great first effort, but to release an app without a playhead, like, that's just not.
Just to clarify, is the playhead the scrolling thing? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, the playhead is like the visual indicator that goes across the music notation so that you know like what note is being played when you hear the audio.
Even that is ironic in itself, because that's what caught my eye when I saw when I saw the scrolling on someone else's video. I was like, yeah, that's exactly what I need.
It just takes time to build this stuff, and I was launching the app at NAMM. I only had so much time to squeeze so many features in, and the way it works in product development is you got to prioritize, and you got to say, well, this is more important than that, and I didn't get to that in time. Yep. So I did it very soon thereafter, and of course it's there now. There's a lot more features and functionality now, but that was really the impetus of the idea. And so the vision is not only composition but also content creation and helping educators to get their content out in the world. But the reality is just there's so many people interested in the composition side of things and the drum notation side of things. And I've known for a long time that music notation software is complicated and it has a high learning curve, and it's usually just not built for drum set. Drum set's like the square peg that we're trying to pound into the circular hole, and it just doesn't fit. And so it usually ends up being, I think, an afterthought in a lot of music notation software. And so I wanted to create a mobile application that can produce professional drum set music notation that conforms to the standards of drum set music notation that we have within the industry so far. And for things that we don't have in the industry yet, hopefully I can use BeatNote as the vehicle to not dictate, but to facilitate the community towards maybe a standard in music notation and give people a way to compose. And there's just been so much interest in the composition side of things that I'm still working on composition 3 years into the release of the app. So, I do want to get to content eventually, and I think there are some opportunities there. A lot of people have a lot of interest in content and the educational content. But for right now, I'm still focused in on composition and satisfying people's needs in composition.
Amazing. So right now, like, the future seems very clear to you. Before we dig into your future plans for it, can we just go back to when the idea came to you? Were you dealing with any doubts at the time? I know you said you were overwhelmed with how much there would be to do, but did you at any point have to battle with the idea that the idea you had wasn't that good? Or were you always like, this is it?
Yeah. I think there's always going to be doubts. Mm. And I have a pretty harsh inner critic too, which can be challenging to deal with at times.
Yep.
That said, the last software engineer position that I held was with a company called Pivotal Labs. We were a software consultancy around building product. And what we did is we helped teach our clients how to build software using modern methodologies, usually referred to as agile methodologies. And we had a special methodology that we used at Pivotal that was a combination of lean startup product thinking combined with user-centered design for design perspective, and then on the software engineering side, extreme programming. And many people hear extreme programming and they think like bungee jumping with a computer, and it's not quite that. but that is a good image, like to put in your head. But I'm generally not bungee jumping with a computer strapped to my chest or anything like that. But what I really learned and gained as a part of working in those teams is they view product as a balanced team of a product manager, a not only a visual designer, but a user research and visual designer, and then the software engineering is the three primary components for building a product. And when you get into user research, it was probably one of the best opportunities for me to build empathy and learn how to build empathy and have more empathy for people just in general. Like we did it in the context of products. However, I've been able to find ways to apply this in all professional and personal relationships and just building empathy for people and opening that door to really get to know and understand people on a deeper level. And so before I started to write any code for BeatNote, I took a page out of the book from Pivotal Labs and I said, I'm going to go and interview a bunch of people about their ideas and their needs and where they're struggling and their pain points. And this is effectively what we do as consultants, and what I still do a little teaching of today. We go through a discovery phase where we try to discover what are all the pain points that our users are struggling with, and who are our users? Like, who is the user that we really want to understand, and what are their pain points? And then based on an understanding of their pain points, we can prioritize the ones that cause the most pain for them. And then we can take that pain point and we can say, let's look at all the possible solutions that we could explore and find the one that we think we have the highest confidence in through doing additional user research. So the discovery phase, I'm doing a lot of generative research and just speaking to educators and teachers about how they teach. How do you teach your students, and what are the pain points that you struggle with? What are the challenges that you face in teaching and education and working with students? And then looking at framing. How can we solve these problems? How can we improve this for you? What can we do? And I had a really fortunate opportunity. I started traveling to NAMM. My buddy Brandon from Singapore, shout out to Brandon, was like, Derek, I love what you're doing. You got to connect with the industry more. You got to come to NAMM. And I was like, how do I go to NAMM? And he's like, I don't know, but you gotta figure it out and go to NAMM. And so I was like, okay. And I went to the NAMM website and I filled out the application form. And sure enough, music app developer was one of the options I could select. And I was like, wow, that's me. And so I joined NAMM, and I went to NAMM and I started networking and connecting with other people and started to build that network. And again, around the theme of connecting and true story. First time at NAMM, I'm on the escalator in the Anaheim Convention Center, going from the first floor up to the second floor. And my buddy Matt, who I marched with in the Boston Crusaders, is on the down escalator on the other side, going the other direction. And I haven't seen him in 20 years. And I was like, oh my God, man. He's like, Derek, what's up? And we're going the opposite directions, right? So a little bit of, circling around to catch up. And that's part of the thing of going to these events, going to the Europe Drum Show, going to the UK Drum Show, going to PASIC, going to NAMM. It's just being there and being able to have the opportunity to connect with these people is just amazing. That was a bit of a tangent. Sorry about that, but I really...
No, it's good. All the details matter.
Yeah. So that's kind of the user research component. Going into that, some of the people I met at NAMM, some of the educators I'm friends with, another friend of mine, Kevin, shout out to Kevin in LA, who I met at a Mike Johnston camp, and we still keep in touch today, and he's very active in the BeatNote community, coming to BeatNote events and networking with me as well. Kevin's one of the first educators I talked to who helped me understand, his pain points, because I'm not a teacher. I'm a drummer, but I'm not a teacher. So I can understand when we talk drums, but in order for me to empathize, I need to build empathy and understand what you're going through as a teacher, what you're going through as an educator, what you're going through as a content creator. And I don't have those experiences, but I believe that because I've built the ability to empathize with people, that I can hopefully gain the understanding I need in order to ensure their feedback is incorporated into the experience that I want to build.
I always wanted some form of the app. As you know, I'm an Android user, but that customer focus like makes me want to go just get an Apple product now and commit to it.
That's very kind of you. I would love for you to do that. I wish I had an arrangement with Apple. Because actually,
who knows?
Back in the day, people would buy iPads for Groove Freedom too. And they would contact me and say that. And they'd be like, hey, can you make an iPhone version? Hey, can you make an Android version? And at the time, it was the same thing. It was like I was working on it part-time because I had a full-time gig. And I would love to do that. I don't have the capacity to do it. I should talk to Apple about that.
Yeah, you never know. Maybe there's some sort of affiliate thing that could be done.
Probably not with Apple.
Yeah, I know. But no, definitely. Like I said yesterday, my wife has been talking about getting an iPad, so it will be a mutual benefit for us to get it, and then I can start using BeatNote in the meantime.
That would be great. Apple is also known for just a lot of great music experiences. I think there's a lot of music opportunity there. So even besides BeatNote, I'm sure you'd be able to find a lot of great apps to take advantage of.
Can we also just touch on doing this whole project on your own and how you mentioned bootstrapping yesterday, which was a new term to me. Maybe go into all that, how you've been able to sustain it on your own.
Yeah, so I've gone over this conversation with people and I get different feedback based on, kind of who's the receiver of it. And so I want to make sure that hopefully my message comes across clear and I can communicate it well. Bootstrapping effectively means that I am not receiving any outside investment, be it friends and family or other companies, in order to build the BeatNote product. So I am financing it myself, and by financing it myself, it's effectively, my time is what I'm using to do that. So I quit my full-time job in June of 22 in order to work on BeatNote full-time. And that effectively just meant utilizing my savings to support myself and my family during the time to get BeatNote off the ground. And about 2.5 years into it, earlier this year, most of those savings, most of that runway kind of ran out. And so I had to take on some contracting work in order to help pay the bills. So things with BeatNote are slowing down a little bit over this 6 to 12 month period. But that's largely in part because I fully believe in the vision that I have for BeatNote. I fully believe that it will be successful. It's just, it takes time. It takes time to get things off the ground. And if I were to only have gone at it for a year or 2 or 3, I don't think it's enough time to actually see it through, to get over that tipping point, if we want to use that phrase. So I'm not, by any means, looking for any kind of sympathy or handout or, sacrifice or whatever. I'm doing this because it's my passion. Like, I love it. I'm living my dream of combining my passion for drumming and for software. I'm building something that so far the feedback has been positive, so I feel like I'm able to have a positive impact and help people actually put something out there that will be helpful, that will provide value to people. And it's just, from what I've been learning about being an entrepreneur and starting a business, it's hard. And that's life. That's just how it is. And I believe in this so much that, I just want to keep on keeping on. And it's been, they say, it's about the journey, it's about the adventure, not the destination. And that's effectively what I'm living. When I quit my job, I didn't know what to expect. And almost 3 years in, I still don't know what to expect. However, I've come to really appreciate, just the journey and meeting people, connecting with you, connecting with Benny Greb, connecting with, other educators, local community educators, and hearing how they're having an impact on the students in their community and how important that community effort is. Like, we're bombarded by all of this, internet, social media barrage all the time, that it's easy, I think, for us to forget about the communities and the importance of the communities and the people on the ground that are making great impacts in communities. So I really believe in what I'm doing, and the more I chip away at this, the more people I connect with, the more support I receive, the more motivation it gives me. And sure, financially things aren't quite there yet, but I believe it's all going to work out. And I think as long as I continue to believe that, and continue to pursue and chip away at things, that hopefully this will grow. It will find people. People will be able to find it, and I'll be able to continue to help educators, help drummers, help musicians advance their craft, advance their education, advance their teaching. And I don't know, I have this drive to want to put something out there that's bigger than me, and I don't know how it's gonna go, so we're gonna figure it out as we go along.
Yeah. I think I just want to add that I find for myself in life, when I'm on the right track, things happen. Like, you meet people, like you said, you met Benny Greb, you worked with him, you worked with Mike Johnston. Like, all these amazing little things, in my eyes, tell me that you're on the right track.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. The thing about it is it's not you don't get one of those signs every day.
No.
Right? So
you just need that reminder here and there.
Yeah, you got to trust in the process. You got to trust in, your intuition. And I think part of that is just years and reps, drumming, doing software, building empathy, learning how to do user interviews, learning about visual design. Each of these have helped me, grow. And to be honest, since going on this journey, building BeatNote and putting this out there, it's forcing me to grow in ways that I never would have been forced to grow in my previous roles, because I was mostly but I was focused on software engineering. Mm-hmm. And now in this role, software engineering is a big component of what I have to do, because if I don't write the code, then the app doesn't improve. But I also have to understand product. I also have to understand marketing. I also have to understand promotions. I also have to understand the business side of things. I have to understand visual design. I'm doing user interviews. I'm building empathy for users. I'm creating the opportunity for users to share feedback, and just the business side of everything. These are all areas in which I wouldn't have had the opportunity to grow had I not put myself in this situation. And so even if everything went sideways, and I were to look back at this and say, that 3 years, I couldn't say that 3 years was a waste of time, because I grew immensely. Like, the education, the evolution, the I don't know, just character that I've been able to develop, the experience, I can't put a price tag on that.
No. Amazing. And it will work out. It'll be an amazing thing for educators and content creators. So I look forward to what's to come. I look forward for what's to come.
I guess that's part of the message that I want to communicate is, this is just the tip of the iceberg, right? Composition is just kind of the first step in this journey. There's so much more that can be done. And some of that is going to come from, hopefully, my knowledge of what the technology is capable of and what I have experienced in drumming and how I can kind of align these. It's also going to come from feedback from people. So I want people to share their feedback. I know it's not a typical thing that people do with apps or software. Generally people have a negative experience, or it doesn't do something the way they expect it to, or it doesn't have a feature that they want it to have. And it's easy to go to the App Store and just be like, rah, 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 1 star.
Yeah.
And what I want people to understand is if you tap on the settings tab, you can tap on email Derek and you can send me an email. There's a website with the product roadmap of the majority of the features that users have requested or I have planned to build, and you can go on there to vote for them, comment on them, leave your feedback, or create something new. And I really want to build an app for the community, not just based on what I think or what my experience dictates, but I want to delve into what content creators need, what educators need, what musicians need, what drummers need, what students need, what beginners need, what professionals need, and make sure that I'm addressing all of those, within the app.
Can you share about what are some things that are in the works?
Yeah. Let me just quickly go over, the basic functionality of what the app provides, and then I can kind of tack onto that, kind of like what's coming. So at this point, BeatNote effectively allows composition of drum set music notation. The instruments that are in there are all related to the drum set, mostly related to the drum set. There are some requests to get percussion instruments in there and some other instruments, maybe marching support in the future, so there's opportunity for that. But right now I'm focused on drum set, and you can do subdivisions from quarter notes, eighth notes, eighth note triplets, 16th notes, 16th note triplets, and 32nd notes. So a lot of people are asking for quintuplets, and a lot of people are asking for septuplets, and so those 2 subdivisions are in development right now, and nice. I am intending on releasing those, so we can look forward to that. From a notation perspective, it supports adding sticking, so it can be really useful for any kind of rudimental or snare drum or fills where you want to be very detailed as far as like what hand is playing what. Super easy to add right and left hand articulation nice. to the notes. Most instruments support a range of articulations. On the snare drum, you're going to get diddles, accents, buzz strokes, flams. Hi-hat gives you the open, the half open, hi-hat, accents, diddles, things of that nature. A lot more can be added, and I'm just trying to be very thoughtful about as we add articulations and additional functionality into the app to maintain the intuitiveness and the usability of the app. Mm-hmm. So once you've composed your music notation, there are a variety of ways in which you can export it. The one that's probably the most popular, that I was the most resistant to implementing, was the PDF export, because I want people to send a link to someone else so that they can open up the music within the app. So they can play it back, so they can speed it up, they can slow it down, they can get the full experience, because the PDF, it's just a static page, right? And that's the feedback I got from my other apps is, while I'm learning how to read drum notation as a result of using the app because I have the audio, the PDFs just don't have that with them. But I can understand if a student is comfortable with reading, you gotta send a student home with something, or the student doesn't have an Apple device yet, right? I don't have an Android version yet. I don't have a web version yet. Web version is coming. Android version is coming. I just need 2 or 3 more Derek's, and then I can knock those out.
Maybe you could have looked into a cloning machine before starting the BeatNote app.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the Calvin and Hobbes transmogrifier machine. I could just duplicate myself. That would make things here a lot easier. BeatNote also supports an image export, and that image export, sorry for the sirens, we get a lot of sirens out here. The image export, you can't hear it? Okay, good. The image export is great for content creators because it supports exporting a PNG, which you can do a transparent background on. So
Nice.
there's some content creators, and I just think it looks really great. You can do black or you can do white music notation, and they stick it on the background, without the background on top of their video. And it looks really nice. So that was built specifically for them.
And that has the playhead as well?
That doesn't have the playhead yet. That's kind of the first, that was the first step in moving in that direction.
Right.
So it's just a static image for right now. But shout out to Austin Bertram, ABB Drums on YouTube. He was one of the people that someone connected me with, about 3 years ago before I started to build BeatNote. And he's the one who told me, Derek, I spend the majority of my time trying to create these animated notations in my YouTube videos. And he walked me through his process. He walked me through all the tools that he uses, the workflow, the time that it takes him. And so I've had this in my mind for 3 years, and credit to Austin for the inspiration and asking for this feature. And it's finally here. The video export feature is in development, and it's coming along, and it's going to be released probably in the next 6 to 8 weeks, if things go
awesome.
well. But yeah, it basically gives you your music notation at 4K or 1080p, whatever resolution you need. You can select a landscape or a portrait depending on where you're putting your video out to. You can select the layout, 1 measure, 2 measures wide, 2 by 2, so you can have a different amount of measures that are displayed, and it's going to give the animation of the music notation at the tempo that you want to export it at. So you export your video, and then you line it up with your performance, and now you've got music notation for your performance video.
Incredible. So, like we were talking about yesterday, that alone is exactly what I need to implement to get me to the next stage of my online drumming course. So, I'll be waiting.
Well, I'm excited at that opportunity, and that's great that you mentioned that, because it's not only the people who are putting videos out on YouTube or on Instagram, but there are a lot of people like yourself, a lot of educators who have a course, who have materials for their students, whether it be something online that anybody can consume, or just something that people are doing privately for their students, where they want to have that notation on the video. And it can be such I think a really helpful tool, so that people can see what's being played, and then they can take it and they can slow it down, and they can really dig into it. And part of the great thing about BeatNote is too, you could also share a link to that, so people could watch your video, and you could post a link to it, and then people can click on that link and then open up that link in the app, and then actually play back through it and get to practice along to it in the app. So
amazing.
Now, speaking of things to come, I'm also looking at building in some social aspects, so that when you share that link, you can have a profile page in BeatNote, and it's got your picture and a bio and a location, so people can see this was authored by Nick, or this was authored by the Drumming Mastermind. And then they can go into your profile, they can see what else you have on offer there, and try to build in some community into the BeatNote ecosystem as well.
Also very cool. Love that.
How all of this will really evolve and materialize over the next 6, 12 months, 2, 3, 5, 10 years, I'm not entirely sure. But so long as people continue to share their feedback, and we have the opportunity to kind of put this out there, I'm really excited about what the future holds for drumming education. Yeah,
me too. I look forward to seeing all these upcoming landmark moments for BeatNote, and I can't wait to use it myself. So, was there anything else in terms of the BeatNote world that you wanted to touch on?
I think we hit on the main things. Just to highlight, I'm really looking for feedback. I know it's not common for people to share feedback about their experience, but I really want to encourage people to share their feedback, whether that be an email to me directly or on the product roadmap. You can also see a lot of the other enhancements that people are asking for and things that are being considered over on the product roadmap on the website, beat-note.app. And, as far as other events and releases, I want to start to be more, thoughtful, more thoughtful about mindful about putting things out there and releasing things, notifying people when there are releases and things that are coming out. And I have some additional events this year. So I did just go to the Europe Drum Show in Germany. I had a great time out there. That's organized by the same people that run the UK Drum Show. I exhibited at the UK Drum Show last year for the first time. I will be back there in Liverpool, October 18th and 19th this year. So I'm super excited about going out there and exhibiting there, meeting more people, connecting with more educators and drummers. And then PASIC is having their 50-year anniversary conference in November in Indianapolis, and I'll be exhibiting there as well, hopefully with a team of other BeatNote educators and supporters. And so these are big events that I'm going to also be looking to align some kind of feature release with as well. And it's also a great opportunity. I want to encourage people. I met with some educators recently, and I've been telling people, like, try to come out to the UK Drum Show if you can. Like, I just talked to Joe from Polynome, and Joe's like, yeah, I'm in the UK. I don't know why I haven't gone. I was like, you've got to come. Like, come out to the UK Drum Show. And so he's going to come out this year. And again, just connect with people. Try to make it out to some of these events, because they're just really, really great events to connect and meet other drummers and like-minded people. Insert your favorite drummer joke here, but even given all of that, it's really, really awesome to connect with other drummers.
I find it really interesting. This is probably something silly to point out, but how you were like, the NAMM idea came to you and your friend in Singapore was like, you have to go. And now here you are sort of doing the same thing to your friends also.
Yeah. If it wasn't for him, I never would have gone to NAMM. Right? And who knows what I would have missed out on, with the opportunities and the people who I met at NAMM. For me, for a small business, NAMM is not the right place to exhibit, and there has been a lack of drumming, presence in the conference, the last few years. However, that said, it's still been a really great opportunity just to network with other people, and a lot of drummers still go, and it's still a good opportunity for that, specifically.
Yeah, well, I hate that the saying is so true. It's not what you know, it's who you know. But like, this is a perfect example of that.
I like to think it's a nice combination of both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like, I think the Derek story has sort of come full circle. You started off with a love for drums and computer science, and then you're at this period where you wanted to go to Berkeley. But then your parents, understandably, were trying to push you down the more stable and secure route. And now here you are, like, sort of inspiring others in a way that to pursue their dreams, basically.
Yeah.
Like, you've got a daughter, so you want to be a source of inspiration for her. Not that, because my parents were the exact same as yours, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. They come from a positive, loving perspective. But how would you, if your daughter came to you in similar position to you back then, how would you approach it?
That's a great question. That's a really difficult question to answer. I look back at things and, where I am right now would not have been possible, I don't think, had I gone the Berkeley route, right? So my parents, what they saw in me was that capacity, that capability for computers based on the interest that I had. And they also saw the passion that I had for drumming. And really the path that they led me down enabled me to pursue both of those in a way that was stable. So I have I mean, hindsight is always 20/20, right? We can always play the what if game and whatnot. However, that said, because my dream and my passion has been to try to figure out a way to put these two passions together, quitting my job when my daughter was not even 2 years old was a bit of a risk. So I also have to express a ton of gratitude and appreciation towards my wife for trusting in me and allowing me to take this risk, because a lot of people in my position, probably wouldn't be as fortunate to have the support and the love and the, assurance of their partner in this kind of situation. So that being said, I just want to inspire my daughter to pursue whatever it is, that she wants to do. And it's not that there is a right or a wrong way. I'm very sensitive to judgmental types of terminology at this point. I'm not saying what I did is the right way. I'm not saying the way I did it is the only way. It was the way that I felt comfortable doing it, by saving up enough money to the point to where I would feel comfortable quitting my job so that I could pursue this and not have to worry about the stress or the anxiety of, will I be able to provide for my family or not, or the pressure of, I have to make this business profitable within this period of time, otherwise I can't do it anymore. Sometimes that kind of pressure is good, and we do need some pressure and some deadlines to motivate and move in the right direction, absolutely. But I just want my daughter to know that, if you have a passion for something, you can find a way, you can make a way. And I want her to feel empowered. I want her to feel inspired. I want her to feel motivated and see, that even though there are challenges, that we can get creative and we can experiment and we can look at all sorts of different avenues and opportunities to figure out a way that will make things work, if it really means, not just like following your passion. Like, this isn't just about following passion. This is about, this is about like my calling. This is my zone of genius, technology and education and drumming and music, finding a way to make this happen, because there's just something inside me that is bursting to come out. And right now it's coming out in the form of beat note. And I feel like I'm able to be fulfilled. Like, this is fulfilling to me to be able to do this. So, yeah.
Amazing. And I think that question was like targeted at how you would approach it with your daughter, but this could be for anyone who's wanting to pursue a dream or, a particular career. All that you said is completely relevant to that as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. If you want to change careers, if you want to go into something new, these things take time, Even as an experienced software engineer, I had 12 years of experience, professional experience, as a Windows application developer. It still took me 3 years to switch over to a Mac iOS application, like iPhone and iPad developer. So even within the same industry, like, it took time, and I just had to approach it in that way. Somebody emailed me, what course do I need to take in order to build an app like this? Well, there is no one course. We gotta kind of break things down and just start pulling at threads and see where it leads us. And some of this stuff, it just takes time. So be on a mission, be invested. I'm not the best drummer. I'm not the most talented drummer or software engineer. But what I can say is, like, I'm really tenacious. I'm really like dedicated. When I make a decision, like I'm going to move to Japan. I told my boss, I'm going to move to Japan. He's like, sure you are. I'm like, no, I'm going to move to Japan. And so now he knows, shout out to Rodney. Rodney loves to tell that story. Like, he's like, I don't question you anymore. When you tell me you're going to do something, like, I know you're going to do something. So
that's an amazing way to be remembered by as well.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah.
Was there anything else you wanted to add, whether it's like from an entrepreneurial topic or beat note or anything at all that you want to add to our chat?
I think we've done a really great job of kind of covering the gamut. Of course, there's so many things that we could, dive into even further. But I really love kind of the arc and the angle that we were able to cover in this chat. And Nick, it's really a pleasure. Thank you for having me on. Thank you for giving me, the opportunity to kind of share my story. I hope that, somehow something that I've been able to communicate here can help somebody. And really looking forward to just learning how else I can contribute to drumming education in the months and years to come.
Amazing. And thank you, Derek. It's from the first message on Instagram to where we were sending voice notes to each other up until now. It's been so amazing to just, become friends with you. You're in Japan, I'm in Australia. So it's been an amazing experience, and I can't wait to dig into the Beat Note app and work together more. And like we discussed, I'm going to need some animation stuff done, so we'll be in touch.
Let's do it. And make sure Japan is on your bucket list so we can hang when you come out here. And I've been to Australia a couple times. Hopefully I can make it down there again, and we can get some in-person hang time, because this is good, but it's not quite as good as getting that in-person time.
I know. Well, when you plan to come to Australia, let me know, and vice versa. Japan is on the list. My wife keeps bugging me about it, so we'll get there.
Glad to hear it. Thank you so much, Nick, again. It's really a pleasure, and looking forward to hanging out with you again in the future.
Likewise, Derek. Talk soon.
Cool. Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks everyone for checking out this episode. It's been an absolute pleasure to get to know Derek and understand all the amazing things he's been working on in the drum universe. Derek's work ethic and attention to detail has pushed me to try level up on the podcast. So thank you to him also for the inspiration and motivation, on top of being an absolute gentleman. Please stay tuned for the drum course content that I've been working on and collaborating with Derek on. I cannot wait to share more, so stay tuned. Let Derek take you out with his killer drumming on Scars by Down to This, from an unreleased yet banger album.